Welcome back, everybody, to the Materia Junction podcast. This is side quest number 2 for yours truly and the Batman Drew. Real quick, just a little brief explanation. We do our monthly podcast series, the Materia Junction, and we try to get guests and all this other stuff. But there's just so much Final Fantasy to talk about that I don't think I could go a month without having a conversation. So we decided to kind of do these smaller, episodes in between, so we can get our ideas out there, so we don't miss anything. So, Drew, how you been? What's going on? And what are you doing currently with Final Fantasy?
Man, it's been good. The normal day to day grind of work has been getting to me lately, but that what makes doing this podcast with you like all the more sweet because I can separate that and close that off, jump into the world of Final Fantasy, whether it's talking about it in a podcast form, the music, video games, things like that. So I've been really looking forward to recording this episode. I will tell you, I haven't done much Final Fantasy gameplay because we're wrapping up next game up, and I didn't, even though you and I have talked about what our next game will be, we haven't announced it, so I haven't started it yet, and I've been itching to play a little bit of Final Fantasy. I've been playing something Final Fantasy adjacent. It's called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Apparently, it was like a mobile game that they turned into a console video game, and it's been pretty good. There's a lot of knockoffs of Final Fantasy in that game. Like there's some blatant ripoffs of Final Fantasy, but it's been pretty good. And then of course, just celebrating the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy X, listening to some of the music and diving back into the world of Spira, which I know we're gonna hit on a little bit on today's episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, just living my best life, trying to escape a little reality and jump into some video game talk here with you.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But I'm gonna have to, you know, I'm gonna have to throw you under the bus a little bit.
Oh
You
no.
forgot to mention. You forgot to mention. That you went live the other day with some not only Final Fantasy VII remake, but just to have a chat, and it was all Final Fantasy related, man. Like you can't don't sell yourself short, man. That stuff was
Yeah.
that's Final Fantasy related.
Bro, that was also, it was really unexpected too, right? Because you go live playing through Final Fantasy 8 right now on Sunday nights. I go live on Monday nights, and you've done two under your belt, including tonight as of recording this episode. I've done one, and we've got a lot of good feedback. But at the end of the day, like they're also sitting there watching the gameplay, and that's what we all love. We all love the gameplay of Final Fantasy, right? Just getting on there with my ugly mug, just talking Final Fantasy. I didn't expect the turnout that we got and the engagement we got from the community. So first of all, if anyone who was listening or who was on the live is listening to this now, thank you so much for the engagement, for popping in. Thank you for the gifts and the likes and the shares that you did for that live. It was a lot of great talk. If you're listening to this and you weren't on the live, then what the hell are you doing? Go follow us on TikTok at Materia Junction and make sure you catch us. I think we're probably going to try to do some more of those. And as you and I kind of get more familiar with the platform, I'm sure there'll be times that we can probably pop on together and just talk a little bit of Final Fantasy. So I will tell you this, in addition to that, the most of the Final Fantasy stuff that's out there is usually pretty negative, right? And I think that um I think the biggest thing for me is like I want to be able to spread some positivity with Final Fantasy community, and
Right.
that's what we got to do a little bit of.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, despite any negativity online and the positivity we try to share, there are still some really good, healthy debates out there, and that's what we got to do a lot of. We were talking about Final Fantasy 16 and some of the discourse of the ending and how it played out and things like that. But that also jumped into conversations, of course, about Sephiroth and a little bit of Kefka and some of the other games. 13 that we talked about a lot. 15 we talked about a lot. So yeah, man, it was just a lot of fun. So I don't know. Do you think we'll end up doing more of those in the future? I got to believe we will.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I was telling somebody. I mean, you did mention the Final Fantasy VIII stream I just finished a little earlier. I was telling somebody in that chat. I mean, we're still fairly new to all this, right? Like we
Yeah.
just started this this idea for Materia Junction started off as just a podcast, and then within, we're going to be recording our fifth episode, which is great. We've branched off into doing live streaming and doing all this stuff. So it's definitely an ever evolving, ever growing idea. And we talk regularly and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. I definitely don't. I definitely don't think like it's just going to be one thing. I don't. I'm not going to pigeonhole us and just say, "Oh, we're just going to be a podcast." So yeah, I definitely think that we'll definitely do more stuff like that, especially because for me, it's all about the community engagement, right? Like to me, it's all about you know having conversations with like-minded people. That's what it's always been about. So yeah, I mean, and just to piggyback what you said earlier, yeah, we just started the live streaming thing. It's been going really well, and it's nice to see, whether even if it's just one person or 20 people, pop in there
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
share ideas and share thoughts and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see that, as as attention deterring as TikTok can be, with just the way the social media platform is designed, just quick hits, scroll through and keep going. It's nice to see somebody stop and consume really what is long form media on TikTok. I mean,
Yeah.
I just did a 3 hour stream, so like people are in there, watching for minutes at a time. That's really cool to see.
Well, and I'll say on top of that, man, like it, not to put any more pressure on us than what there already is, but I think that you made a good point. It's just so cool to know that whether it's one person, 12 or more than that, or however many, right? That at that moment in time, we are their most important form of entertainment. Us in the Fantasy community and what we're doing, like stopped them in their tracks and they were like, I want to be a part of this. And to me that just makes it so cool. And I also gotta say too, I was thinking about this tonight when you started going live. I was watching a little bit and trying to interact with the chat just a little bit. um and when I got off the live, because we were sitting down getting ready for dinner and stuff, um the thought went through my head of like, man, one, this is so much fun to be able to do this with someone else, right? Like
Yeah.
running social media is hard, as it is, but the fact that like we have a partner within each other to be able to do it makes it, I don't know, I was like, hey, we're growing our community and putting ourselves out there, and I'm not feeling like I have to be the one on the live making the content, right? And then hopefully you have that same feeling vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think we've only been doing this for a few weeks now. I mean, like we started the pages like 1st of July. But if you are out there, if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I've been thinking about making some content, putting stuff out there. If you have someone you can partner with on it, to me, it's just been all the more fun. You and I both have our own separate social medias aside from the Materia Junction. But this has been a blast to do it together.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it's funny because I get excited for Materia Junction stuff, and then when it comes to just doing stuff for Dad Man, I look at it as just like a chore. Like it's so hard to find the motivation to like, I gotta do it by myself. But yeah, no, for sure. Like yeah, doing a partnership and having somebody else to lean on has definitely been. I'm surprised. I never thought about it before. Like people make it seem like you have to do social media and content creation all by yourself, and you don't.
Yeah.
You could definitely partake with another individual. But yeah, so yeah, nice little recap what we're doing right now. um we're gonna be continuing that for those who are listening. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I usually go live with some Final Fantasy 8, and then Drew will be doing Mondays Final Fantasy 7 remake. Stay tuned for the um, the August episode is going to be loaded. I'm just a
Yeah.
little spoiler there. August episode for the podcast is going to be very loaded with a lot of
Which
information, but I don't want to give too much
I don't
away. So
Yeah. I don't know if we say it too often, but just so that it's out there, like these side quest episodes are just going to come out as we do them, right? Like we're committing to about once a month, but
right,
who knows? We might do more. There's no consistent date. It's just like you got to
right,
keep popping in on the channel to figure it out, right? But the core podcast, Materia Junction podcast, is the third Monday of every month. So like that is set in stone, hard date. So that August episode that Dad Man's hyping up on the third of Monday of the month is when that's going to drop. So
Yeah, and definitely keep an eye out for that one because it's going to be a lot of fun. But today, our
yeah.
side quest for today, I have a question for you. I have two questions, but we're going to go one at a time here. There have been a ton of Final Fantasy games made at this point, from main titles to spin-offs. Lots of ideas have been brought to life by Square and their wonderful developmental team. With that said, is there any specific style you'd like a Final Fantasy title to be made in? Or if not, maybe revisit a style from a previous entry?
Man, so that's a good question, right? Because I think this is probably one of the things that the fans are most divisive on is like what style of Final Fantasy is the best. And if you're a modern gamer or someone who's never played Final Fantasy before, it could be hard to go back to a retro style video game. I'm that person, right? Like I played 7 when I was growing up when I was a kid, played 8 a little bit. I didn't play 9, but I really started to get in the video games when 10 came out. And when we play, went through the next game up right now that we're going through is 6. We had just finished one. You and I had just finished Final Fantasy 1. We had a recap on that. There wasn't much difference between Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 6. Like it's like a
Right.
storyline obviously developed, and there were some you could tell they did some things differently with their graphics and stuff, but for the most part it was the same style. The difference in the jump between 6 and 10 is night and day, right? So like it's hard to jump back into that retro style, but I do want to see how Resurgence does it because I think that that's going to be it's super cool. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You get that 2D animation but with a little bit of that 3D feel and navigation. But when you ask this question, I started thinking about okay, like well, am I thinking like style as in like turn-based combat? Because we just had an episode where we talked about that. Is that something I'd want to be able to get back on? Um, is it is the future? I mean, obviously the future of Final Fantasy is more modern style gaming and graphics, right? But um, would I want something that it feels a little bit more pixelated? And I think what I settled on is full disclosure, and come at me in the comments if you want to. 9 is one of the worst Final Fantasy games of all time. And
Oh,
I know that's a hot take. I know that's a hot take. But when I say it's one of the worst, I don't mean it's the absolute worst. It's not the absolute piece of garbage. It's not Final Fantasy X two. But it is in the bottom half of Final Fantasy games for me personally. But what I loved about it was that Renaissance style
mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy flavor, right? Like, and 16 wasn't that. 16 was Game of Thrones on Final Fantasy crack, right? Like, so
Right.
when I'm talking about something just weird and different, like 7 and 8, very humanoid based. 9, like Zadine had a freaking tail, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I want something, and it was just normal. No one thought twice about it, right? Like, and so I I think if I had to pick a specific style that I would want another Final Fantasy title to go back to, I think if they made 17 in a style and a world building like they did with 9,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really, really fun to be able to revisit, right? My concern is that 15 and 16, the last two entries, have been very humanoid based. Yeah, you've had like creatures and you've had, other style of characters, right? But your main heroes were humans.
Yeah.
And I would love to see us go back to something a little bit retro in feel, but having that modern game visuals and style. To me, I'm like, man, could you imagine Vivi with today's graphics? Like how
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
cool that would be. So 17, I think I would love it to be kind of that Renaissance old school feel, what we got with 9. I would love a better story. And 9, I will say this, just so that people don't hate me as much as I think they will about what I said. 9 was great through disc 1 and 2. Where it derailed was the same place that most Final Fantasy games derails, was that in the last 3 or 4 hours of the gameplay, they were like, everything you worked up to doesn't matter anymore because we're going to switch it around, and this is what's really going to be about. And in 9, it just hit way too hard, way too quick, and the characters we fell in love with meant nothing at the end.
Yeah.
And so I won't go into spoilers any other than that if people haven't played it yet. But Dave, if you're listening to this, Aerith dies in Final Fantasy 9.
We got to get
But
shirts made. Aerith dies in
yeah,
this one.
yeah. But yeah, I think go back to a Renaissance style like 9. Take a little bit of a break from the broody,
Yeah.
hero, and give us a Vivi. Give us a Vivi we can root for. Give us a Zidane. Because I, as much as I didn't like the game, I told you when I started playing 9, I was like, Zidane's got to be one of the most annoying characters in the world. You're like, give it time, and it did. He turned around, right?
Yeah.
Give
Yeah.
us those kind of characters for the next installment. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like 9 is a world that is interesting on like on paper, like the Renaissance style, like and they haven't really done like too much with it. Like Final Fantasy Tactics gives me a little bit of 9 vibes. It has that same kind of art style to it. But yeah, if I had to revisit an existing era in Final Fantasy, I would love for them to revisit 9, but I thought about something like even more like just crazy, like off the top, right? Like I think I'm gonna shout out another game franchise here. I think the Assassin's Creed franchise does it so well, where they build their game around like a historical time period. You know, history was my favorite subject in school, world history. So not so much American history, but world history. Like I really loved the ancient Roman history, ancient Greek history, ancient Egyptian history, the Norse mythology, like all that stuff that like games like Assassin's Creed and God of War have done really well at immersing themselves into worlds like that. Dude, I would love to see like a Final Fantasy game that takes place in like ancient Egypt, or like a Final Fantasy game that takes place during that ancient Greek time with like the Trojan horse and all this other stuff. Like I feel like they kind of did a period piece with 16 because it was like Game of Thrones and very medieval, but for the most part a lot of Final Fantasy games are built in their own worlds. Like 7 and
Yeah.
8 have that futuristic military style. You know, 9 has that Renaissance. 6 has that like old school steampunk style. 10 has the old like island vibe to it, very like not like non-technologically advanced civilization. But it's not like you play a Final Fantasy game and you're like, oh yeah, like that's like ancient Greece or ancient Rome or ancient
Yeah.
Egypt. Like I want to see something like that. Like I would think like an ancient Egyptian Final Fantasy game. Like I just see it in my head, like fighting against like a sphinx or fighting against like jackals in the desert or like the Egyptian gods. Like that would just be so cool to me. So I would want to see something like that. Like just go all in and like build a world like that. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, no, I actually think it would be really cool, and we had this conversation. I don't know, I don't think it was on air anywhere, but we were talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So,
Hmm.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey is my favorite entry in the Assassin's Creed games. I think several of them are really great. I think if you want to talk about a franchise littered with inconsistencies, it's Assassin's Creed, because for every great Assassin's Creed game, there is an equally bad Assassin's Creed
Yeah,
game.
this is true.
But I think that with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to your point, it was a mix of like, obviously all of them were fiction, but it was a mix of like, here's some real world, ancient Greece type environments and world building, but with like the Spartans, but also telling a little bit of the mythological story of the Spartans, and then integrating that with a little bit of what we actually factually know about the era and that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And they did a really great job. And what we got out of it was one of my favorite characters in a video game, and that was Cassandra. Now in Odyssey, you had the option to pick whether you wanted to be the brother or sister at the beginning of that game. And you and I've talked a little bit about this, where I think Final Fantasy needs to we need to go back to having a little bit of a choice on our character development, right? Like, I don't, it's so hard to go all the way back and be like, you can change the name, because like now it's all dialogue and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
voice acting. But there shouldn't be any reason we couldn't customize the look of a character, right? Or telling a story like Odyssey or Valhalla did it too, where you had the decision to be a male or female, hero of the story. And if Final Fantasy is going to bring in new people to the franchise, which we talk about that all the time, like in 20 years, you and I are going to be in retirement homes still playing Final Fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and if we don't bring in a new fan base, then no one is going to be there to pick up the franchise. I think that a missing demographic is the female gamer. When was the last? Okay, so 13 had obviously Lightning as
Yeah.
your female. I keep hesitating to say the word. It's antagonist, right? No, protagonist. Protagonist is the
Protagonist.
hero.
Yeah,
Okay.
protagonist.
So Lightning was the protagonist, and but after that, I mean, I didn't play 14, but I guess Jistola plays
Yeah,
a part in
Ishtola's
it.
big in that game. Yeah.
Yeah. But in but both those games were 10 years ago. So when you're talking about right now, today's age, when you think of Final Fantasy 15, obviously still has a huge fan base. But as far as I know, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but your party is 4 dudes, and
Four
then
dudes.
16 is Clive and Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, give us the option to be able to have a female protagonist. But I like where you're going. I like the idea because it gives us a little bit of a, like, if they did it that way, it gives us a little bit of a mix of something real world that we're familiar and relatable to, but also gives us that fantasy element. But hell, I mean, even if you went even more, fantastical with your world building and your development, I just want something new. Because 16, as much as I really like 16, it didn't feel like Final Fantasy to me. So, but I like where your head's at. I like those options.
Yeah, I feel like the reason Square doesn't do it is because they really do pride themselves on building their worlds from the ground up. And I again, I do commend them on that. Like, Spira, Midgar, like Ivalice, Valisthea, like all these worlds that they've built from the ground up. Yeah, of course, they're as synonymous with the games as the characters are, and I respect it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with taking heavy inspiration from periods in time that have translated well into, or that have had success in translating into modern media. Like the perfect example, or the most common and the most recent example I could use is Christopher Nolan just released the Odyssey, right? Which I have to go
Yeah,
see because I love Christopher Nolan. But there's this, and to your point, the Odyssey came out, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey is now seeing a resurgence. A lot of people are going back and playing that game now because of a movie that came out. So like I would love to see, Final Fantasy succeed indirectly because of what's going on in pop culture. Like if somebody made a movie about, you know, I don't know, let's just use Final Fantasy 16 because it's the most recent one. If somebody made a Game of Thrones type movie and that caused more people to go play Final Fantasy 16 because it had that flavor to it, that's a win in my eyes. More people are getting hands on the title. More people are getting eyes on the game. So I think like that would be just common sense to say, hey, you know what, we've done a really good job at building all our own worlds. Let's let's cater more towards like what's going on right now. Like if they had, you know, obviously it would have been more of a coincidence than anything. But if they would have released the Final Fantasy title this year that had very ancient Greece or ancient Roman vibes to it, we would have played it because we're fans of the franchise. But then your common gamer or your everyday gamer would have played it because the Odyssey just came out in theaters.
yeah.
So like I would love to see
And
something like that, something more synonymous with what's going on in the real world. Again, I understand their thought process behind it. They're building everything from the ground up, which has been great. But I think it's okay to dabble a little bit. Like I would I haven't played Assassin's Creed Black Flag yet, um, and that whole pirate's life for me is really cool. But dude, I would love to see a Final Fantasy where it has naval exploration with a pirate ship as opposed to an airship. Like you always get an
yeah,
airship in Final Fantasies, but you don't get, like, you had a canoe in Final Fantasy 1, but you don't get like a pirate ship to like sail the seven seas. That would be super cool. Like I don't
yeah.
know, I just feel like there's so many untapped ideas there, untapped potential, to name drop that. For them to really like expand
You know,
in their creative development.
that game I said I've been playing, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. There's airships in that game, right? That's how the primary form of travels. Everyone travels by airship, and there are in air, like battleship, like naval battles, but in air in that game, and you know, like yeah, if Final Fantasy did that and had like if you wanted to keep the airship, you had in air battles, it would probably be a little bit on the nose. But I like your idea of like maybe ground it a little bit, maybe make it Tale of the Seven Seas type game and type adventure, and there's so much there you could open the world up to, like you could open up the world to mermaids and sea creatures. You
Yeah.
think of like Final Fantasy 1, man. Some of the obviously when you're traveling by boat, some of the battles that you have to fight when you're on the seas, I think you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Let me throw an idea out there. So since this is side quest, obviously we just kind of, it's just conversational, right? So it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
always going
Yeah.
to be about Final Fantasy. My wife introduced me to a book last year, a book series, but a book, and it's called Crescent City. Have you heard of this book series before?
No.
Okay,
No.
it's by an author named Sarah J. Maas. She's a big romance type, fantasy author, and the books is kind of what you would expect. It's fantasy genre with a mix of like 50 Shades of Grey. It's basically what it is,
Nice.
right? And my wife, she reads the books, and she read the first two, and the third one's about to come out. She was so excited. She was like, I don't have anybody to talk about. No one I know has read the books. So I went behind her back and I read the first one, so that way I could talk to her about the first one,
Sure.
and she'd have
Okay.
someone to be able to, because she listens to all my Final Fantasy ramblings all the time. So I was
Right.
like, let me do this for her. And to my surprise, I was like, I really like the book.
Mm.
And the book has your two main characters is Bryce, who is half Fae in this, and then Hunt, who is a like um, an archangel who was cast into slavery and now basically like does the bidding of like all the bad guys in the book or whatever, right? So and
Okay.
then they get paired up together, they fall in love. It's a romance. Not as raunchy as I thought it would be, considering some of the stuff my wife reads, but it was still, it was pretty good. It was really good, but it opened up the world, and what the author did really well was we dove into a world that was just normal. It was flooded with angels and demons and fae and all these creatures and stuff like that, and it made me realize that like as you were talking about this, when you look at most recent Final Fantasies, and again, I think this goes back to what I was trying to say a little bit about nine, is that it doesn't feel fantastical anymore. Aside from magic and of course like
Yeah.
icons and the stuff like that, and you of course you have Ifrit, you got Shiva, like you got your basics, but man, I kind of want something. I want a world where it's just normal for there to be angels and legions of armies by that range like 16. How cool would it have been if you adjusted this a little bit, and instead of Dion and his army, if they were angelic and they could fly, right? I mean, he's the embodiment of Bahamut. Like you would
Mm-hmm.
imagine he would control an army that is air based, right? And so to me, I think that's what, like, I would love to be able to go back to. You and I are big Magic the Gathering players. My wife and I've talked about this before, and I actually really agree with her. I don't know if a whole Magic the Gathering set would be in order, but certainly a secret layer for the Crescent City book series, because there is a lot of lore there, and I'm going through the second book now, and I don't know if it's as good as the first one, but it's still pretty good. But when I listen to it, I can't help to think that there are Final Fantasy elements littered in it. Whether
Sure.
it was inspired by Final Fantasy or not, I seriously doubt it. But like all art is inspired by something,
Right.
and I think Final Fantasy would be, I think it would be a good move to go back to something a little bit more fantastical. So Scarlett, if you're listening to this episode, I name dropped your book series. So hopefully you're happy. There you go. So
Yeah, I think when it comes to like the world of creativity, there's no such thing as a bad idea. I mean, I think
yeah,
you have to try everything and anything to see what sticks. And I appreciate people who take more risks, because without risks, we wouldn't even have Final Fantasy to begin with. But I look at something like Expedition 33, right? That's as an original embodiment. You've never seen that art style anywhere.
Yeah.
Like those creatures, like yeah, they give me Guillermo del Toro vibes, but I've never seen something like those creatures created. And to take something as simple as like a flower petal, and normally like you would think flowers are beautiful, but making it so hauntingly terrifying in the same vein is like, oh, they're onto something here. So yeah, like,
Yeah.
but that doesn't happen without taking risks and say, and questioning or going away from what's normal. Like in some games, Final Fantasy feels very copy paste. Like especially when there's like sequels. Like I haven't played any of the sequels for Final Fantasy 13, but they look exactly like the same
They do.
game. Like
Yeah.
they look the same, and I know there's a lot of story there, and somebody was talking in the chat today about Clive versus Lightning and like how she ends up in her story and what she becomes. Like, yeah, that's great, but the game itself is just copy paste. It's just a different skin on the same exact game. It's the same thing with um, what's the one I'm thinking of? Tactics in 12. It even though 12 is a 3D title and it's a turn based kind of instead of a strategy game like Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics did it right, whereas 12. A lot of people say the story in 12 is very good because it's very politically driven, but the thing that gets flack in 12 is the combat system because they don't understand how the gambits work. So it's
Yeah.
just like sometimes it feels lazy, and I rather them take risks, like a Sandfall did with Expedition 33, in order to achieve those results. I think that's what they're missing, to be honest.
Man, when Aerith dies at the Gamage, tragic in Expedition 33.
Yeah,
Absolutely
when she
tragic.
just gets Thanos snapped out of thin air. Yeah,
I think I
but
think I
yeah, I
think
mean,
I think the purpose of the Materia Junction podcast, I think one of our core pillars on what we're building the brand on is seeing where we can fit the death of Aerith
yeah,
into every opportunity we can. So
we need to put like an Aerith dies counter on everything that we put out there and see like how many times it's actually brought up in conversation. But yeah, unfortunately, that's gonna be just a joke that is never exhausted to this point. So the next thing I want to talk about, and it'll be the last thing that we talk about today before we close. Um, we both stated that Final Fantasy X is the best entry in the series. Okay,
mhm.
Spira is gorgeous, and the world building in that game is second to none, in my opinion. With that being said, Spira was revisited again in Final Fantasy X too, but I think we both agree that that game didn't hit as well as we would have liked it to. So I would argue that revisiting the world of Spira would be incredible, but not in the same vein of like a 7 remake series. Let's revisit Spira and play through the story of Jecht, Auron, and Braska as they journey through the pilgrimage to rid the world of sin. How would you feel about something like that?
Anytime we can return back to Spira, like I'm there for. Because I just think that world, what makes Final Fantasy X so amazing is the world of Spira is truly one of the most. We were just talking about with what kind of style we'd want to see. It is a world of its own. And whether you're in Zanarkand, the Zanarkand ruins, if you're in Luca, if you're in Besaid, if you're in Kilika, it doesn't really matter. Like everything's so uniquely different, but so absolutely consistent. And it's a great world, right? I love it. Um, so yes, I would love a prequel to Final Fantasy X. But when you pose this question and I read the show notes, my first thought was, okay, how do you get us on board with telling this story? Because if we're Final Fantasy X fans, we're going to like hell yeah, like let's go. Like we love Auron, we love Jecht, we kind of know what to expect. But both Auron and Jecht are pretty similar in personality and how they operate, right? Like you can kind of see a lot of similarities, and I think there would be some fun comedic moments because they're so much alike. They would definitely butt
Mm-hmm.
heads and things like that. The heart of this game, if they gave us a prequel, would have to be Braska. Like
Yeah.
it would have to be Braska. And what you would have to do is you would have to show through the reason why Yuna was so caring but also so strong is because of what she learned from her father. And I
Yep.
think you would have to have a little bit of a romantic side story between like Braska and Yuna's mother, because they don't dive a whole lot into Yuna's mother. All you know is that she's an outbed, right? Like that's all you
Mm-hmm.
really get from the story. So I want to be able to see how that kind of plays out. Whether it's obviously it would have to be flashbacks because Yuna's already alive when Braska goes on his pilgrimage.
Right.
Maybe along the way he runs back into Yuna's mom or something like that. I want to be able to know more about that kind of stuff, and I think that Braska has to be that catalyst to walk us through that story. Don't you're already sending Jet back, because obviously he comes to Spira the same way Tidus does. So you're already sending him back. So you can't really retell that same kind of narrative again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that. You've already did that. I want to be able to see this story from Braska's point of view. I want to be able to understand how, and I get it. I'm a little bit biased because I think Yuna's one of the greatest characters of any Final Fantasy game. But I want to know why she's so great. I want to know what at a young age prepared her to carry the entire weight of the world on her shoulders and defeat sin. I want to know, and it has to come from Braska. And so I want to be able to see those things play out. I want to see signs of what Yevon was should have been. I want to know that Yevon lost its way, and I want to see some good in Yevon because I want to believe, just from a religious standpoint, that there is some good in some of your spiritual beliefs and your faith in the church and things like that. I want to be able to see
Yeah.
some of that and how that kind of plays out. But then who is Sin at this point? Because our Sin is Jet, but they never really go into like who was the Sin that Braska defeated, and if Sin is an embodiment of another summoner or whatever it may be, um, who was that, and was
Mm-hmm.
that person important to Braska? And I think what you could eventually do, and if and I don't know, saying it out loud, maybe it's not a great idea. What if Sin ends up being Yuna's mother and Braska doesn't find that out at the end? And the reason why he couldn't kill Sin and Jet had to become Sin was because he couldn't do what we thought he had did, and Jet
Right.
had to do it because it was Yuna's mom. So I don't know. Those are just some thoughts that I had when you posed this question, but I love
Yeah.
the idea revisiting Spira.
Yeah, the Yuna's mom theory is interesting. I don't think it would work out in. I mean, again, anything could be. That's the magic of the pen, right? You can write a story however you want, but like in the world that has already been established, and like the information that we have about Ten and how Spirit works, and like what we know, I don't think it would work logistically because Yuna's mom is Al Bhed. We know that, and Al Bhed is so separated from Yevon. I don't think she would ever be in the position of being Sin, right? Like I just don't think it would ever like she would have to have been a summoner. She would have from what we know, like from what we've been
Yeah.
told, it could be totally different. From what we know, like the summoner, the pilgrimage, the final Aeon, all that, she would have had to have gone on her own pilgrimage in order to do that. And we don't really know like because so in Final Fantasy X, obviously Yuna defeats Sin and brings forth the eternal calm. So Sin is that's it; it's never coming back. But prior to that, 10 years before that is when Braska defeated Sin. Um, but how long was Sin around? I'm sure if we go deep into the and I'm sure it said in the game in like a conversation maybe with that old guy Maichin or whatever. Maybe he says it Machin, whatever his name is, the old guy. Um, but before Braska beat Sin, like when was the last time Sin was? When was the last time before that there was a calm? So
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure. Like I don't remember. Like there's old talks of summoners and Summoner O'Hallen, I think was one. The guy who was like the Blitzball guy, and then there's Lady Yokin who never really defeated Sin. She's the lady that the Lulu was the guardian for before she died, and then you have Seymour, who Seymour's mom became Anima, so he fought Sin and didn't end up doing it. So like, there's a lot of like time in between, but I think you can take it to the point where you can develop a whole story for that. Like you could develop a whole like, okay, well, Sin has been around for 20 years or whatever. And then what I would really like to focus on is is Jecht, right? Like Jecht is such an interesting character to me because he's such a dirtbag, right? Like through Tidus's perspective, like Jecht is such a dirtbag and he's this horrible human being. But you get little glimpses of Jecht's vulnerability throughout the story, like when they're doing the flashback scenes, like when he's talking to Tidus's mom and saying, "Oh, like, he's just gonna cry again. You should go to him." And then you get that full circle moment with him, like at the end, like, "Hey, listen, like, you know, I'm really bad at saying stuff like this, but I really do like care about you." Like, obviously, Auron had to tell Tidus that because you know, and we've all experienced it, like as men and as males and toxic masculinity and all that. It might be hard for somebody to share like their vulnerability, but I think what I would want to explore in a prequel is what made Jecht so special, because the whole idea of the final summoning, right, is in order for the final summoning to work, the summoner has to share an incredibly inseparable bond with the person that they're choosing to harness the faith to create that final aeon. So why? And I'm sure Auron would have done it, but why wasn't Braska's relationship with Auron stronger than with Braska's relationship with Jecht? Like, what made that relationship so much stronger? Is it because of the commonality of them two having younger children? Like, I would love to explore that relationship. Or maybe it's even one of those things where Auron really was the first choice, but there wasn't enough compatibility there.
Yeah.
And maybe Jecht had to step in because Jecht being from Dream Zanarkand, obviously we don't know this at this point, but Jecht being from Dream Zanarkand, maybe because he was created by the faith, he had a better chance of successfully becoming that final Aeon in order to be. So there's so many different things that you can visit there. Um, I would definitely love to see a a representation of what happened between Braska and his wife, because obviously he is from the one side of the coin where he's a Yebonite and he follows a religion, and his wife is Albed, and those two sides are forbidden to talk to each other. So I would love to see that. I would love to see like maybe at first Braska was very hesitant to become a summoner because he just wanted to spend time with his wife and his child, but he felt like a greater calling to it. I don't know. There's so much that you could do there, but I think if anything, being a prequel to a story, like you have Crisis Core as a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, which I really did enjoy the story of Crisis Core, but I think a prequel to Final Fantasy X would work 100 times better.
Yeah, I think so too. I had two things that came to mind. One, talking about Jet. I think that for me, it would be easy for the developers to make him very much like in the vein of Joel from The Last of Us, right? Like
Yeah.
he's bitter, he's angry, maybe a little bit of a drunk, and well, not maybe a little bit. Like they even say in the first 10, he was definitely a drunk, and but he was a guy that you could see all of his intent. Like you can understand that, right? But you would use the word that I think is spot on. He was a dirtbag, like he was, and so I would. Although yeah, I think you need a little bit of that Joel aspect in him because you need that grittiness and that like I will do anything type personality to him. I also think you mix him in with a little bit of Frank Gallagher from
Oh, from
Shameless,
Shameless?
like just a
Yeah.
terrible, terrible father and human being.
Yeah.
I think would be great. Um, but I googled it because I was like, did they say anything about Yuna's mom in 10? And I kind of remember this, but then I kind of don't. But according to Google, it says that Yuna's mom, who is unnamed, which by the way, what would Yuna's mom's name be? Like if you're listening to this, drop it in the comments. What do you think Yuna's mom's name should be? But she was an Albed mother. She died while Sin attacked her ship at sea while she was traveling to the Albed home to try and fix her relationship with her brother Sid. She left to mend ties with her estranged family, hoping to help bridge the gap between her people and her husband, Lord Braska's Yevonite background. Sin intercepted and destroyed her ship during the voyage, leaving Yuna an orphan at a young age, around 3 or 4 years old. Her tragic death heavily motivated Lord Braska to begin his own summoner pilgrimage to defeat
Ah,
Sin. So, which makes sense, right? Like, I get all that. I don't remember that being talked about in the game, but I'm sure it was probably mentioned or something. Or maybe there was like some kind of side content that they had brought up. But yeah, okay. So if that's lore, if that's how it happened, um, I think in a Final Fantasy X prequel, we need to see that. Like, we
yeah.
need to see the death of Yuna's mother to
That's
give us
probably
that
how the game
emotional
should
attachment.
open. Like the
Yeah,
opening cutscene should be the destruction of her ship.
and then you just get like a 4-year-old Yuna with a microphone singing a J-pop song to her
Yeah,
mother at the sending.
yeah,
Sorry,
hell
I'm
yeah.
never gonna forget. I'm never gonna forgive Square Enix for Final Fantasy X too.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
hilarious.
I think there's a lot you could do there. So returning to the world of Spira, I'd want to know a little bit more. I dive into places that we didn't get to explore. Like don't send me back to Besaid. Don't send me back to Kilika. Don't send me back to Luca. Like, I want to see places we haven't seen before. Um, uh, you know, fuck the Guados. I don't want to go to Guado Salom. Like and I don't want to see. It would be easy to show us like all of our favorite characters in children form. I don't want to see that either. Show us a baby Yuna, sure. Like, that makes sense, but this shouldn't be Final Fantasy X, the kindergarten years. Like, I don't want that. Like, give us a true gritty adult story with Braska and Jet and Auron, and I think I'm there for it. So
Would you have Blitzball in the prequel?
I would not only have Blitzball in the prequel, but I would have it actually be one designed much better in as a mini game in this game versus what it was in 10. But I would have it play a pretty predominant role in this game. Like, Blitzball in this, like, yeah, Tidus in 10, Tidus was a Blitzball player. He was a star player for the Zanarkand Apes. Like, he said that every chance he got. But what was like the most important part about Blitzball in that game had little to do with Tidus and more to do with Waka and
Yep.
coping with the loss of his brother and the fact that he's never won a game before, things like that. I think Blitzball has to be the thing that kind of is therapeutic for Jet to get to the point where he is the hero, right? Because from what we know, when he shows up, he's nobody's hero, and so like, I think that it needs to play a more predominant role, and I would even maybe treat it a little bit more like I don't know if you have him go on like a tour or a season or things like that, but I don't see any reason why, if you're going to make this, because realistically, and maybe I'm off base here, but realistically, a Final Fantasy X prequel, 20-hour campaign at most, right? Some side quests
Yeah,
here or there, but
maybe.
it's not
Yeah.
like but so you could pair that up with a Madden light version of Blitzball and actually have it be something playable. Maybe it's Jet. I always say Jet comes out when I don't mean it to be like Jet as an airplane jet, but um, you have him maybe before he gets to the world of Spira and he's in the old Zanarkand, and maybe you have it a version of like, think of like Rocket League. Like, I think that would be kind of fun to have something
Hmm.
like a mini game that you could really delve into and play, and I think it would help wash the taste out of the mini game of 10 out of our mouth, because Blitzball as a sport's really cool, but it just wasn't executed well in 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, like it's clunky. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I would kind of do the I would kind of go the Expedition 33 route. Like, if you remember in the game when you're playing Expedition 33, like you start off as Gustav, you go on the island, all that shit happens. But when you go to the village, I forget the name of them, the creatures. When you go to their
Yeah, those
village to
yeah,
find CL, and she's like their champion, I
yeah.
would do it like that, where like it's Braska and Auron, and they go to fucking they go to what's the name of the big they go
Luca.
to, is it not Bevelle? Yeah, they go to Luca, and Jecht's already there, and he's been there for a bit, and he's this fucking awesome blitzball player that nobody's ever seen before. And then you like that's how you recruit him to your party. Like I wouldn't open with the game like as Jecht as your player because I feel like that's
Yeah, I agree.
1-to-1. Like you're starting as Jecht, you started as Tidus, and they're making it all about Tidus. I wouldn't start the game playing as Jecht. Like we already know that Jecht accidentally got to Spira. Like we already know that. Like it's said in the main game. He was out at sea training, and he came in contact with Sin and got transported to Spira. So like we already know that, right? So we don't need that established. I would rather zoom in on Braska because he's the only character out of the three of them because Auron, obviously, you get Auron in the entire game of 10. So you already have his entire story play out. And then you get Jecht because he's the central focus because he's the villain, right? He's Sin. You don't get a lot of Braska. So like I would make this Braska's story. Like I would make it
Agreed. Yeah.
it's totally Braska's story. It starts off with his intention of, uh, initially not wanting to be a summoner, but then his wife's tragic accident caused by Sin. That's what motivates him to be a summoner. Obviously, they live on Besaid because that's where they said that they lived, and obviously Auron is there. So you get the baby Yuna scene because you have to, and then you go on the pilgrimage just him and Auron. I mean, they could add a third party member into there if they want to, because you could just create another character for it, and maybe like you lose him along the journey just to make the journey more heavy. And then you go to Luca, and boom, there's this guy who's this stranger that came from nowhere, and he's this awesome blitzball player, and it happens to be Jecht, and then he recruit him to the team. I would like to see something like that, like, but I definitely would want it to be focused on Braska because of the three characters. Even though he's the most important character because he's the summoner that defeated Sin, he gets the least amount of time, like
Yeah.
for
Well,
development. So I would want it to be Braska's game.
what do you think about this idea then? Like, if you're in the world that you're setting up, game opens up. We know it's a Final Fantasy X prequel. They're gonna sell that point, right? Game opens up, and you're playing as this female character, and you go through the first 45 minutes of the game, um, and whatever that looks like, setting up to where you come in contact with Sin, and everyone around you dies, yourself included. Um, Cutscene, and then you see a little 4-year-old Yuna there standing there crying, and you realize that the woman you just spent the last hour playing as was Yuna's mother. And so the
Yeah.
game tries to get us emotionally attached the same way that we got emotionally attached to Sarah in The Last of Us, or what was the name of the Gustav's girlfriend in
Sophie.
the
Sophie.
Sophie, right? And you kind of get attached to this character, and all of a sudden they're just ripped away from us. I think if you do it properly and it works, then we're on board for Braska, right? Then we're bought
Yep.
into, like, I need Braska to fuck Sin up, right? Um, and and to that point, if the game and the campaign is 25 hours, I think vitally an hour and a half of gameplay to set up what seems to be Braska's intentions of, like, it's revenge against Sin in essence, right? I think that would be super important, and then you could really heavily weigh into, they don't really go into, other than the use of Machina, they don't really go into the divisiveness between the Albed and Yevon and the people of Yevon and things like that. Like,
Right. Right.
they're sinners, and they use Machina and stuff like that. Um, you could really weigh heavily into that divisive. Like, what if Braska is trying to hold the funeral, and I'm making all this shit up, but what if Braska tries to have this funeral for his wife, and the church won't let him because she's in Albed,
Hmm.
and things like that. Like, I don't know, there's just a lot you could do there, because in 10 we were like, well, Waka's a racist, like, that was pretty clear. And he overcomes that, and realizes that not
Yep.
all Albed are the same, and they're not all bad, and it's really his own, warped outlook on life. But we kind of need to know why, right? We need to know there's more history there, and I think in the world of storytelling that you could do now, you could really dive heavily into that. And we always talk about how Final Fantasy, when it's operating best, is when it's holding a mirror up to the world. Well, shit,
Mm-hmm.
there's no bigger mirror right now than the divisiveness of racism in our country. You throw something
Absolutely.
out like this, especially what always got me, what I always found funny about it was they other than Waka, who was like, you know, 10 tones darker than everyone else. Everyone was the same skin color, but yet they still hated the Albed. That was the part that always got me, right. And I think that
Yeah.
there's symbolism there of the fact that it really doesn't matter, like when you're racist like that, it really doesn't matter what the other person's skin color is. That's not the problem you have with that other individual. It's your own ideology and your viewpoints on life that warps you into having this, terrible outlook on life. Because again, they all look the same, other than the fact that Yuna had two different color eyes, which I think was really cool, by the way. But other
Mm-hmm.
than that, they all look the same. And but yet Waka still had issues, and so I think that's super relevant to kind of explore. I really do.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with Waka is it's learned behavior because he grew up so like in the church, and that's what everybody told him, like, oh, the Albed is the boogeyman and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's actually said in the game, but I think like in like Yevon had obviously been around forever, but Sid and I forget the brother's name. When they're on the airship, they're singing the hymn of the faith. So
Yeah.
at some point, the Albed people were heavily involved with the Yevon religion. So something happened there that caused friction. And I don't think it's something as little as Machina, because even in Bevelle, like when you go to the Bevelle temple, there's Machina all over the place there, right? So it's
Yeah.
just one of those things, like it's convenient for us to hide it from you, but when we really want to use it, we use it. So I don't think it was the major like decisive factor that caused separation between the people of Yevon and the people of the Albeds. I think it was something else, and it would be super cool to make something like Yuna's mom this super heavy figure in the culture, like me, like she's obviously Albed, but at the time she is also a Yevonite. And I don't know, man, maybe they could make her like this crazy public figure where like she goes and she's, I don't know what you want to call it, but like force sensitive, like starts sending people, and she's this super helpful figure, and she has support from the Albed and support from Yevon, and then she fucking dies.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what do we do now? Like, what do we do now? Like, she's fucking dead. Like, she was this awesome person for both sides, and she fucking died. And the reason she died was because she was leaving Besaid to journey back to Beaconel to repair her relationship with her family. So of course you can throw the narrative, oh, it's your fault that she left here to go see you and travel all that way, and now she's gone, and fuck the Albed and no more Albed. Like there's so many layers that you can build and build and build from there. And I think a story like that would really hit home, man, because as far as we're concerned, playing Final Fantasy X, so much emphasis has been put on Braska, right? Like Braska is this godlike figure for the people of Spira because he got rid of sin, right? But like, what is Braska's motivation? Like, why did he want to go on this pilgrimage in the first place? And if you put that much weight on his character, and like you said, it's a revenge quest. Like that would be super interesting because you would have to think at some point, right, that he would have to remove the vengeance from his heart in order to successfully become a summoner.
Yeah.
Because what makes Yuna powerful is not her vengefulness. It's not her like it's not her like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill that motherfucker. Like Yuna doesn't have a bad bone in her body. She's powerful because of her kindness and because of how she cares for the people of Spira. So that's a lesson that Braska would have had to have learned, and I feel like it writes itself because there's so much material that you can pull from. But it would be super interesting to see like what psychological angles they take on these characters.
My head went down a path for a second, and I had to stop myself because I was like, what if like when Sin sent Jecht to Spira, what if Yuna's mom didn't die and it sent Yuna's mom to Zanarkand, and then Yuna's mom was actually the birth mom for Tidus or something like that. I start
Oh,
my head started going, and then I was like, wait, no, that's some
that's
Star Wars shit
incestual,
because they
bro.
made out. They made out. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
Princess
you
Leia and Luke
kissed your
Skywalker.
sister, man.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that maybe we should, move past that thought process. But no, I like it, man. I think at the end of the day, you need to give us, like, if you're Final Fantasy, if you're Square Enix, you need to give us something new but with some familiarity, right? And I think that the only thing that I would think that this game what would be it would have against it is that there is a very big stink on the Final Fantasy X world because of Final Fantasy X 2. And and to me, I think that's one. I think it's sad because like Final Fantasy X is such a great game, so like you shouldn't judge that game because of a sequel that didn't hit the mark. But that's also Square Enix's fault because every time they re-release Final Fantasy X in any form or fashion, it's paired up with Final Fantasy X too. And I don't know who's asking for this. Who out there is like, I've got to get Final Fantasy X too. I got to bring that in. Final Fantasy X just dropped on Switch too. You know what
Yeah,
I need? I need Final Fantasy X too. Like no
yeah,
one's
yeah.
asking for that. Quit giving us Final Fantasy X too. If we want it, we'll go out and buy it. Fucking I don't need it. Like I'm never going to play that. But I do think getting going back to the world of Spirit I think would be a lot of fun. I think that this would be a great idea. Um, and because it would be a great idea, means Square Enix is probably not going to do it, and that makes it sad. So,
Yeah, I mean,
but
time will tell. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's so funny, like how I feel like Square kind of understands like the only way we're gonna get people to play 10-2 is if we package it with 10. So that's why that's why when you buy like the remastered version of 10, it includes 10-2. Just because like we can't sell this individually on its own, we'd have to package it with 10 in order for people to get eyes on it. And I feel like if somebody buys it, then they feel like they're obligated to play it. So maybe that's how it happens. But I've owned it several times, and when I've started up 10-2, I get past the first cutscene, and then I do the first mission where you're jumping on the fucking cliffs and going up this mountain, and then I just don't. I just can't do it anymore.
eventually we're gonna have to. That's gonna have to be next game up. We're gonna have to make our way through 10-2. I'm not going to do it any sooner than we decide to make that, that our mission to
Yeah.
to do. But like and the I'll say this and I'll get off the fucking soapbox about 10-2. The idea behind it was a good idea. Yuna doing everything for the people of Spira and then saying, "This is the life I want to live." I love that. I love that idea. You don't have to be a summoner no more. You don't have to lead people anymore. Like they can find their own faith in other people, right? Like I love that concept. I love that idea. The execution is just what kind of failed on it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it happens. Like not everything's a home run. I'd be curious out there. I haven't really met anybody that's like I love 10-2. Like I've some people are like it's okay, it's not as bad as people think, but like I've never heard anybody who was like I love it. Final Fantasy 8, you're replaying Final Fantasy 8. There's a lot of people who shit on Final Fantasy 8, but there's also a diehard fan base that's like this is the best Final Fantasy game of all time.
Yeah.
And I don't hear that with 10-2. So I'd be curious if anyone's listening
Yeah.
to this, like drop it in the comments for sure. Let us know if you're a fan of 10-2. Defend 10-2. I want to be able to hear why you think it's so great. So
Yeah. I don't
I
think
don't
there's
know.
any defense to that game at all, but whatever.
Nope. Surely not. So Dad man, you have anything else you want to add about our topics today before we close this thing out?
No, man, I'm just excited to see like what the future really holds. Like I'm excited for Residence. I'm excited to get Reunion in 27. But I'm really like, I'm really excited to see what comes after. Like um yeah, like I don't want to jump the gun and I want to appreciate what we're getting, because I am excited to finally finish Final Fantasy 7. Like I just hope that it's done. Like, there are other titles in the franchise that should, if not need, the focus that 7 has gotten. But I think we're in a good space. I think, I think realistically getting two Final Fantasy titles a year is fine. With the landscape of gaming and the way everything is right now and how much money these studios pour into the development of their games, I feel like if we got, you know, a turn-based Final Fantasy and an action combat Final Fantasy every year, like I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I just want something.
Hmm.
I love Final Fantasy VII. I'm super excited for Revelation, but I am also as equally excited for Resurgence, and I think that shows that Square Enix, like, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can give us different style of games, different um, turn based versus action combat, which I think Resident is supposed to be turn based, right? I'm not crazy about that,
Yeah,
right?
Residence is
So
100% turn-based. Yeah.
like give us a little bit of like it's okay, like it's okay to diversify what you give us, but the most important thing is what you guys think, Warriors of Light. What do you think about the idea of revisiting the world of Spira and having it be a Final Fantasy X prequel? I personally, me and Dad, man, we'd love the idea of revisiting the world of Spira and kind of seeing that story throw to kind of shown and told through Braska's eyes. But would that work? Would it something you would even be interested in? I would love to be able to know your thoughts. Make sure to comment and leave them in the comments below so we can keep the conversation going. Um, Aside from that, guys, just a quick shout out. Just again, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us and joining us on the Materia Junction podcast, the side quest episode. We're really enjoying doing these, and again, we said it at the top of the show. The interaction with the community in comment sections and lives and stuff like that have been absolutely great. And the fact that we're about to record episode 5 of the core podcast, and 3 of the 5 episodes we are going to have had guests on the shows with us, I think just shows how much potential there is for the community. So, but that's it, guys. The lights of the crystals may dim, but the data is written. So for all the Warriors of Light out there, don't forget to save your progress. If you watched the live tonight on Dadman's stream, always save your progress.
Always,
there are
always
no
save.
there is no heroes in Final Fantasy when you don't save your progress, guys. This has been Materia Junction. Thanks for joining us, guys.